Thank you.
all of that stuff. And it wasn't just, my way or the highway. We had to have some discussion, some debate.
Four at the most. The name is four. It looks like about 9 or 10. I'm sorry. Yeah, four to the other. It looks like it's 9 and 10. Yes. See the difference already?
But see, here's the thing. As long as they forward, it don't matter. What?
About the, it shows the name. I'd like to look at it.
One of them was a good friend of mine. I can tell you what it is, but I came to him when I found out, and I've been telling him, you know what I'm saying? I was like, man, you need to check your black. You look like my cousin Red. You know what I'm saying? I was like, he was like, oh, man, showing up. I called him on the phone. I said, man, you check Wikipedia.com. I said, look at it and see what it says about you. He said, man, he ain't say nothing. He said, Robert. I said, man, you know what that makes me. He's like, don't say it. I said, man, you know what that makes me. He's still I want to see if he gonna be here today. But yeah, most of those people up there have a significant amount of black blood in it. As said, thousands of people. So W.E. Du Bois said, yeah. It makes you bipolar and schizophrenic. So that's what psychology is. But I'm gonna put that in an op-ed. Yeah, you want to. Oh, yes, sir. 5 seconds. But,
Okay, it's 3 o'clock. The State Government Committee will come to order. Clerk, please call the roll.
Representative Sales,
Here?
Representative Bedsole,
Here.
Representative Rogers, Representative Boyd, Representative Butler,
Here.
Representative Chestnut,
Here.
Representative Cole,
Here.
Representative Keel, Representative Kirkland,
Here.
Representative Lawrence,
Here.
Representative Paramore,
Here.
Representative Shaw, Representative Stahagen,
Here.
Representative Wood, Representative Yarborough. We have a quorum.
Okay, quorum's present. Chair now will call up Senate Bill 12. Senator Barfoot?
Mr. Chair, I'll be taking care of that for Senator Barfoot.
Okay. Vice Chairman Bedsoe, please go ahead.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Members of the committee, this is a identical bill to something that we've already heard in committee, identical to HB 5. It establishes a Police Officer Memorial Day in the state. Just as a reminder, this does not encumber any cities or municipalities or the state to a paid holiday. This is simply a day of observance that coincides with the national day declared by President Kennedy in and around May 15th of each year.
Okay. Any comments or questions? Okay. Does anyone entertain a motion?
Motion passed favorable.
Okay.
Second.
Make a motion by Representative Cole, second by Paramore. Okay, I also want to announce that HB 259 will be carried over. So if anyone's here for that, that bill will be carried over. Okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, your bill passes. Okay, I'd like to call up HB 216 by Representative Bedsoe.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members, this bill is designed to save our local counties a little bit of money. Under current statute, our license plate designs on our motor vehicles are valid for a period of 5 years, in which time that we're all required to have a new license plate placed on our vehicle. The plates are typically redesigned, but sometimes the design is very minimal or not at all. And when this occurs in that 5-year period, your counties will notice a substantial increase in the postage. As many of our counties have asked their citizens to renew online and the counties mail these plates out to their citizens, that postage bill will really spike. Technology has increased, so the manufacturing of our license plates and the durability long-term as far as the visual aspect for law enforcement to be able to see them has increased over the years. So this bill would propose a 10-year period in which that license plate is valuable or valid, so there would not be a constant every 5 years increase in their postage. It would simply spread that out to a period of 10 years.
Okay, any questions, any comments? Any motions?
Motion for report.
Okay, Stadhagen, second. Who was second? Okay, Shaw. Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that bill's passed.
Thank you.
Okay. Next up is HB 238 by Representative Kitchens.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. HB 238 sets up a distinctive license plate. One of the staff members here in the State House, their brother actually is now a brain cancer survivor. They're involved with the Blazer Bolt Foundation, which is an arm from UAB. So this sets up a distinctive license plate where the proceeds would go to further brain cancer awareness and brain cancer research. We'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
Mr. Chairman, move for a favorable report.
Lawrence and Cole, yes, and Cole. Okay, we have a motion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you, sir. Your bill passed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members.
Yes. Okay, so that takes care of our first 3 bills. So next we're going to do HB 7. So we're going to take a little quick break and bring our list up from the front. While we're waiting on the list, I will I'll recognize Representative Oliver for his bill. Okay, that'd be fine.
Mr. Chairman, committee, thank y'all for letting me be here today. Thank you for being here as well. This is a bill that we brought last year. It came from the Republican caucus. It is designed to prevent racism in schools and state agencies. A lot of discussion, a lot of angst, and folks getting emotionally involved with this bill. Well, the truth is it's already passed in 7 states. It's pending in 16 more. And it's when states like New Hampshire can pass this legislation, you would think that Alabama could. So I've got some polling data I just wanted to discuss with you briefly. In the state of Alabama, and this is polling data that we paid for as a party, it shows that the single most important issue is protecting our children from woke policies. And the question was asked, what is most important to you? That is from Republican voters, it's number one. From Democrat voters, it was the third most important thing. So obviously, most of the folks in the state are concerned about what our kids are being taught. This bill, as it's presented, House Bill 7, it simply prevents the teaching of some divisive concepts, which we have discussed in great detail, that we believe would tend to make kids, would teach them racist ideas. Now, the divisive concepts themselves, I don't think there's any place for them in schools at all. And I think most of us would probably agree on that. I'm glad that we're here today and we can hear what some people think about it. But we had these same conversations a year ago, and we were able to pass this bill through the same committee and through the floor of the House. So at this time, I would like to ask you for a favorable vote after we have some appropriate discussion.
Okay, thank you. Any members have any questions for the sponsor?
These before the public hearing, and it's a public hearing.
You want to do it before or after? What's up to you? You want your question now, you want it later?
I do, but I could take the whole time on this. After 45 years and 6 months in education, y'all come on, be for real. I can hardly sit in my chair now.
And Ms. Boyd, we do have your amendment.
Sir,
We did have your amendment that you asked for last year.
last year, okay, you can redo it. I'm praying, I don't know where to start. And we got this public hearing. What bugs me most? I'm a product. I sit here as a product, coming from a small street in Anniston to a housing project. Not because that's not all my mother could afford. My father went to the service and didn't come back and couldn't operate as he could. Y'all, this is something else. I've lived under what you have in this bill taught to me all my life, racist language. And I'm in an environment where I see it differently. I'm not licensed to preach, so thank you, Mr. Chairman, because I'm not through. I need to sit here and pray a little while and pass it on to somebody else, because we could be here till tomorrow with me on this issue.
We'll go ahead
So
and
go
start the
on.
public hearing, and we'll come back to you, Ms. Boyd, if you need us to. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Okay, we're gonna start the public hearing now, and clerk's gonna call the speakers.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, yes, yes.
Please forgive me if I butcher your name in any way, but would John, is it Edsman? Okay.
I have a copy of my testimony here. If I could pass that on. Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, my name is John Eidsmo. By the way, do we have a time limit here?
We do.
Oh, we do. 3 minutes, sir.
3 minutes, thank you. My name is John Eidsmo. I'm from Pike Road, Alabama. I'm senior counsel, some say senile counsel, with the Foundation for Moral Law, and also a professor of constitutional law at the Oak Brook College of Law. And I would urge you to support HB 7. This is dealing with racially and other forms of divisive concepts being taught, many times referring to what is called wokeism or critical race theory, CRT. Certainly not limited to that. It could be many divisive ideologies on many sides, but I've studied CRT at great length. I'm convinced that it is dangerous, divisive, and false, that it's contrary to the beliefs and values of most Alabamans, and our schools and our agencies should not promote an ideology that teaches children and others to hate their ancestors, to be ashamed of their country, that divides parents and children from each other, and divides children from each other, and that indoctrinates people to define themselves by identity groups instead of as free and equal individuals created in the image of God. Now, the Alabama State Board of Education has adopted a policy prohibiting CRT, but I think this is also needed. It supports the state board's policy, but it also covers state agencies as well, some that do training, like police academies, training in social work, and many others. I would point out some are probably, and when I'm the first speaker, I have to anticipate objections, but some might be arguing that the legislature should be leaving this to other agencies. I'd only say that Article 14 of the Alabama Constitution gives the legislature plenary power over education, and this bill fits well within the parameters of the Alabama Constitution. Also, I'd note that, while some will probably say there are academic freedom issues here, it is certainly true that in 1967, the Supreme Court in Tinker versus Board of Education said that neither students nor teachers shed their constitutional rights at the schoolhouse gate. But even in that decision, the court said that speech in school settings may be regulated if it would pose a substantial disruption or interfere with the material educational objective. Now, Alabamans, as Mr. Oliver has already noted, are far from alone in being concerned about this. Proposals to restrict CRT have been adopted in quite a few states: Idaho, Montana, North and South Dakota, Iowa, Utah, Arizona, Oklahoma, Texas, Arkansas, Mississippi, Tennessee, and New Hampshire, sometimes by the legislature, sometimes by governor's executive order, and it's being considered in many other states. I think this is a reasonable measure to ensure that Alabama schools and agencies do not undermine the values of Alabamans, and I urge you to vote yes.
Yes, sir. Thank you for your testimony. Okay, clerk, please call the next speaker.
Becky Garrison.
Hi, thank you. I'm Becky Garrettson, the Executive Director for Eagle Forum of Alabama. We support this bill. Critical race theory is a college-level theory. However, concepts and tenets of CRT are being taught in some schools in Alabama, K through 12. Some students, for example, are asked to participate in a privilege walk or a privilege circle, an activity where children are divided by or singled out by their race, their economic income level, their family makeup. Children are encouraged to view social interactions through the lens of race. Some are asked to apologize for their skin color. Concepts of CRT like these are dividing our children, they're dividing our communities, and they're dividing our country. They're also a violation of the 14th Amendment and the Civil Rights Act. And for these reasons, we ask that you would please support HB 7.
Thank you for your testimony. Okay, now we're going to the opposition.
Lee Murkey.
Hi, my name is Lee Murkey, and I'll be focusing on what necessitated HB 7 rather than the bill itself. I'll start with a quote. "We have successfully frozen their brand, critical race theory, into the public conversation and are steadily driving up negative perceptions. We will eventually turn it toxic as we put all of the various cultural insanities under that brand category," end quote. This was tweeted proudly by Christopher Rufo, the man largely credited with single-handedly manufacturing the panic and outrage surrounding CRT. Taken at face value, this quote is an effective political strategy laid bare for the public to see, which in theory is refreshing. But if you look a little closer, the truth of the matter is, this is a candid admission of deliberate dishonesty and manipulation at the expense of us all. Let me explain. Rufo started paying attention to contemporary race discourse when he received screenshots, videos, and testimonials regarding diversity training from private citizens in the workplace, something that struck a nerve and called for immediate action. And as a journalist, he took that action, writing incendiary article after incendiary article on the subject. Now, we've all sat through annoying diversity trainings that quite frankly never seem to end quickly enough, and that's coming from me. And as stated by Kimberly Crenshaw, who coined the term critical race theory, I've been witness to diversity trainings that I thought, not quite sure that's the way I would approach it. To be honest, sometimes people want a shortcut. They want the 1 to 2 hour training that will solve the problem, and it will not, end quote. Anyone with even a rudimentary understanding of CRT would understand the sentiment from Crenshaw, but according to Christopher Rufo himself, CRT is something that he does not understand, but he was enamored with the title because it could be politically weaponized with little to no effort or sophistication. He thought that the title itself, critical race theory, would instill fear in most Americans, saying that the word critical has negative connotations and is easy to link to the big bad boogeyman that I can almost guarantee he's never read, Karl Marx. The word race is inherently divisive and charged, and the word theory it suggests thinking abstractly in a country full of people who could not be bothered to consider anything beyond what they believe to be concrete. This is Rufo holding us all in contempt. He's saying that you all lack the capacity to genuinely try to understand what you're demonizing, and this is how his blatant dishonesty hurts us all. To close, the problem of racialization is here, and until we deal with it, it will remain. Silencing this issue now, you're only condemning your children, great-grandchildren, and beyond to an even more complicated and intense iteration of this very same discourse that you find so uncomfortable. Think of it this way. If you were suffering from a serious illness, but it was curable, would it benefit you at all to silence the doctors who were well studied on your particular illness just because thinking about it makes you uncomfortable? No, not unless you were scammed into associating that doctor's expertise with everything you find objectionable. And if you think this analogy is unfair or some baseless rhetorical flourish, here's another quote from Rufo.
Yep, you have 8 seconds.
8 seconds, okay. The goal is to have the public read something in the newspaper and immediately think critical race theory. We have decodified the term and will recodify it to annex the entire range of cultural constructions that are unpopular with Americans.
Okay, thank you for your testimony. Okay, next up is,
Stevie Hicks.
okay, you have 3 minutes, ma'am. You're welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, home of the Civil Rights Movement. I'm an educator, and I'm also a future parent opposing HB 7. The last year has been very, very hard for educators. We have navigated our students through pandemic, the grief of loved ones during COVID-19, and the challenges of virtual learning, all to return to our classroom amid a wave of efforts by lawmakers to censor classroom discussions, strip fundings from public schools, and deprive Alabama's children of an education they deserve. Firstly, this bill is designed to distort the truth about what is being taught in the classroom in Alabama. The language in this bill is intentionally vague and confusing. Bills like HB 7 have already caused a chilling effect on teaching, with educators fearful, anxious, and unable to get clear answers on what they can and cannot teach. In the wake of the bills, like across the country, educators are being harassed and threatened. So much so that the Department of Justice has stepped up its efforts to monitor harassments of educators. Our children deserve and want an honest and accurate education. My students are very smart and very inquisitive. They have questions about what they notice about the world, and they deserve good answers, accurate answers. And it's certainly best for our children to have these discussions in a supportive environment with well-trained educators. We are in a state where we want to take $300 million meant for our children's education and spend it on water parks, prisons, and plenty of other projects unrelated to schools. Alabama schools certainly and consistently rank as the worst in the country. We are in the midst of a teacher shortage. I myself have considered leaving the profession. Teachers are exhausted and exasperated of attacks on the profession, on our schools, and our students. Additionally, this bill will only add to the erosion of parents' trust in the state of properly educating their children. I'm in the community with parents who have been forced to create learning communities outside of school so their children receive a comprehensive, honest, and accurate education that fills the knowledge gaps that are created when educators do not have that support. Your priority as lawmakers on this committee should be to do everything you can to support educators and students, not to pass laws that interfere with educators' ability to teach students rights to learn. I cannot give my students the education they deserve with bills like HB 7 as law. I cannot prepare them to understand the world around them and to build a better future for all of us if I cannot help them understand their own identities,
10 seconds.
To appreciate their identities, and to truly know our shared histories and the history of this nation. I mean, this is the home of the Civil Rights Movement. Let's teach it.
Okay. Thank you for your testimony. Okay, our next speaker.
Bobby Mays.
Welcome, Mr. Mays. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, sir. Please start the clock when I start my remarks. I thank you for allowing me to be here. I serve as the president of the Elmore County NAACP. Some say that the language in this HB 7 is confusing. I agree. And I'm convinced that that confusing language is strategically designed to appeal to the base of values and biases of certain segments of our society. There are 11 or so concepts in this bill. Given the time that I have, I'll draw your attention only to a couple. Item H, that fault, blame, or bias should be assigned to race, sex, or religion, or members of a race, sex, or religion, solely on the basis of sex or religion. I say to that, in the early years of this country, who were the slave owners? Who were the elected officials? Who were the governors? Who were the sheriffs? Who were the chiefs of police? I'll tell you who those folks were. Those folks, from a historical standpoint, they were mostly white. They were mostly white men. And now you want to pass legislation that criminalizes teachers for teaching that history. Folks, as shameful and as woeful as that history is, it is America's history. It is Alabama's history. It deserves to be taught without being watered down, without teachers fearing for any kind of retribution, any kind of discipline. Item H in HB 7, item K. With respect to American values, slavery and racism are anything other than deviations from, betrayals of, or failures to live up to the founding principles of the United States, which include liberty and equality. Now, this section would have you to believe that the shameful and racially motivated system of slavery was just a bump in the road, a mere failure to live up to the values of liberty and equality. Now, I truly wish that I could stand here today and say that there are no vestiges of slavery in these United States, in this state of Alabama. I wish I could stand here and say that. But if I did, I'd be lying. You are lying to yourselves if you believe that passage of this legislation will erase the sordid racial history of this country, of this state. If this bill is passed, I apologize.
You got 10 seconds. 10 seconds.
If this bill is passed, it authorizes state agencies, political subdivisions, and schools of higher education to discipline or terminate employment of any employee who violates this act.
Okay, thank you very much.
I urge you to be about the business of crafting legislation, passing legislation that moves the state forward.
Sir, your time's up.
And not take us backward.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. Yes, sir. Thank you. Okay, next speaker.
Robert White.
Welcome, Mr. White. You have 3 minutes, and we'll start your time.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman, and to the committee. And I also want to recognize Representative Oliver. He and I have talked about this. I went to Dadeville High School. His family's from Tallapoosa County. And we've talked about this a lot, and I want to thank him for his receptiveness. I pastored also in Butler County for 11 years, and I pastor currently in Montgomery. I've been a college professor for, I've taught in college for 30 years, and the social sciences is what I have focused on. And this bill represents a wave in our country that wants to do away with our liberties. It wants to challenge our First Amendment rights in every aspect, and wants to bring what the courts have called a pale of orthodoxy on the classroom, which was also referred to by the courts as a marketplace of ideas. I was taught that by Dr. John Eidsmoe, who spoke first. He was my constitutional law professor at Jones School of Law. And I just want to say that rather than fall in line with the rest of some other states and the rest of the country that want to censor First Amendment, I want to take a different approach. I started preaching on the street, and if I were to preach the gospel now in blue states, that would be called hate speech. And now I teach African American humanities, and in red states, that's called divisive. Rather than play these games, why don't we make a full repudiation of the things of the past and move forward with healthy discussions, dialogue, and debate, rather than practicing the culture of denial and dissidence and cover-up? Why don't we address these issues head on? Because after having taught young people for 30 years, denial is one of the biggest mental health issues that they have. Not being able to think, not being able to articulate, and not being able to defend themselves if necessary. While I understand, because I teach teachers as well in the doctoral program, I understand, yes, we do have to shield and protect K through 12, but to equate the reasoning and rationality of a third grader with that of a college student, assuming that a college student is no better equipped to defend against erroneous theories than a third grader, is absurd. College students and third graders shouldn't be lumped together, nor should we not talk about something purely because it upsets some people. I'm a preacher. I upset people all the time. I'm a college professor. Students walk out mad all the time. But I tell them to defend themselves. If I'm wrong, show me. If I'm right, show me. And so it is objectivity, ladies and gentlemen, that we're losing, and that's what I'm a defender of. I'm a defender of objectivity, and I think this bill is one of many that is trying to take away our freedoms and our rights, especially to academic and intellectual freedom. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. White, for your testimony. Okay. Next speaker.
Jeff Wallace?
Welcome, Mr. Wallace. You have 3 minutes.
It's Walker. Sorry, you can't read
okay,
my
sorry.
handwriting. It's okay. My name is Jeff Walker. I'm from Auburn, and I'm just a parent. I'm no one super important. But what I do know here in Alabama is we hold our educators to an incredibly high standard. We require them to have education, especially in this state, in some very great institutions. We require every single year that they get continuing education for new ways of doing things, for new theories that come out. Throughout their entire career, their education is never stale. With bills like this, you're saying these highly educated, highly trained teachers and administrators in our school systems don't have the discernment on what they should be teaching in classes. The other thing I'm really tired of hearing are these type of bills and people stand up and saying things like wokeism and CRT, when really what they're trying to demonize is compassion for vulnerable members of our society and understanding of the plight of your neighbor that may be different than your own. This bill makes no sense, and I know teachers are scared to death of it. We're going to lose teachers out of our education system. Students are going to pay the price in the long term. I don't care how many states pass this. I really don't. I'm also tired of that. I'm tired of us comparing ourselves to other states. You know what? Alabama starts with A. We should be at the top, but we're not. We have to fall in line behind these concepts and these issues that are brought up to split us up. These are the kind of things that just drive me insane. There's not a problem here. People are inventing, again, problems where they don't exist. I urge you to vote against this. If you want to create a bill that makes sense, I tell you what, be more specific in the language and don't be so vague so that it's not up for interpretation. If you want to say something, write it down in the bill so that people can vote on what you mean, not these vague expressions. Thank you.
Thank you for your opinion, sir. Next up.
Karen Jones?
Welcome, Ms. Jones. When you start talking, you'll have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon. This bill, HB 7, I am totally in opposition. because it was founded upon white supremacy by law that exists right now in our state constitution, where it says, but if we will have white supremacy, we must establish it by law, not by force or fraud. If you teach your boy that it is right to buy a vote, it is an easy step for him to learn to use money to bribe or corrupt officials or trustees of any class. If you teach your boy that it is right to steal votes, it is an easy step for him to believe that it is right to steal whatever he may need or greatly desire. The results of such an influence will enter every branch of society. It will reach your bank cashiers and affect positions of trust in every department. It will ultimately enter your courts and affect the administrations of justice. You had 18 white males and 4 white females to sponsor this racist bill because maybe they don't want to face their ancestors' history of racist, genocidal, misogynistic, homosexual, pilfering, kidnapping, pedophilia, plantation, slave owners. The truth is the truth. History cannot be repeated. Should not be repeated, but it should be taught. Whether we like it or not, it is what it is. And that this bill is based on white fragility. It's simply based off of white fragility that people do not want to face the truth. It's not woke because evidently they're daydreaming that Black people are going to put them in some fields and make them slaves. The bottom line, this is not to help schools. It is to cause more harm because it is to make the sponsors and those who are white racists feel comfortable in telling other people that it is okay for what they want the truth to be. The truth is what the truth is. It cannot be changed. It is what it is, and we must accept it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. Thank you for your testimony. Next up.
Tyler.
Welcome, sir. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to committee members. My name is Tyler Coward. I'm the Senior Legislative Counsel at the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression, or FIRE. FIRE is a national, nonpartisan, nonprofit organization dedicated to protecting free expression for all Americans. We were really very happy to work with the legislature back in 2019 to pass this state's campus free speech bill. We worked with folks like the Eagle Forum to get that bill introduced and get that passed, and Alabama and you all should be very proud of that bill. One of the things that bill says, now law says, is that all public institutions of higher education should strive to ensure the fullest degree of intellectual academic freedom and free expression, and recognize that it is not the proper role to shield individuals from speech that is protected by the First Amendment to the United States Constitution, including ideas and opinions the individuals find unwelcome, disagreeable, or offensive. And it's in that spirit that we appear here today in opposition to HB 7. Our commentary is limited to the higher education provisions of this bill, the higher education provisions of this bill that would ban the teaching of certain topics at your public institutions of higher education, violate long-standing constitutional law protecting academic freedom of professors at your public colleges and universities. In 1957, in Sweezy versus New Hampshire, which is a landmark case for academic freedom rights, the Supreme Court wrote that the essentiality of freedom in the community of American universities is almost self-evident. No one should underestimate the vital role in a democracy that is played by those who guide and train our youth, and to impose any straitjacket upon the intellectual leaders in our colleges and universities would imperil the future of our nation. No field of education is so thoroughly comprehended by man that new discoveries cannot yet be made. Particularly that is true of the social sciences, where few, if any, principles are accepted as absolutes. Students and teachers must always be free to inquire, to study, and to evaluate, to gain new maturity and understanding. Otherwise, our civilization will stagnate and die. And then 10 years later in Keeshan versus Board of Regents, the Supreme Court further said that our nation is deeply committed to safeguarding academic freedom, and they noted that academic freedom is a special concern of the First Amendment that does not tolerate laws that cast a pall of orthodoxy over the classroom. Because of the time constraints, I'll move forward here. We did hear testimony that other states have considered bills like this, and that is true. Only one state in the country, however, has enacted a law like this that includes the higher education provisions. That is Florida. That bill has been enjoined by the federal court. The state asked the 11th Circuit to stay that injunction. The 11th Circuit denied that stay. So that law is still enjoined, and Alabama should not follow the path of Florida and invite costly litigation to the state on that issue.
Yes, sir. Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Okay, that concludes our public hearing. Any members of the committee have any comments?
Mr. Chairman, at the appropriate time, I move for a favorable report.
Okay, let's hear some comments first. Go ahead, Ms. Boyd.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What's wrong with HB 7? It really prevents public schools, higher education, and state-funded entities from preaching and saying just what it is. It does not address divisive concepts. Number one, up front, I'm not totally against the bill because it has diverse in it. But diverse refers, most of them take this as to be a black and a white issue. It's not. There are 5 or 6 minorities or more, and they spoke from that platform. We already fund, listen to me, Confederate Memorial. We've done well, Mr. Chairman. Look at a holiday. I'll give you one example. When we celebrate the Martin Luther King birthday, the celebration, isn't there another person named with him on that holiday? I might be wrong, but I don't think so. Come on. We allow the Sons of the Confederate Veterans to give a presentation at all schools, anywhere. And we're making strides. Let's not go backwards. Let's continue to go forward. Now, you might sit up here and say, she's just one member. I am. But you know what strikes me now? You are not thinking about it. You haven't walked my walk. And you can't really talk my talk on this bill. And you know why? In 1954, I want you to hear this well, when I graduated from high school, never forget it, May 17, Brown versus the Board of Education. Come on, y'all. Just give me some time. Please, let me get it out. I thought I was the smartest person in the world because I graduated #1 in my class. My teacher came in, trainer that day. She said, Barbara, sit down. You got to change the last section of your speech. And in that day, you had to learn it. #1, I learned all this, and I've been the way then as I am now. I said, no, ma'am, I can't do that. She said, sit down. I said, I'll never forget, and listen to me. I sat down, and this is what she said to me more than 50 years ago on the ending of my speech. A famous decision has come down now. You must end your speech with May 13th, 17th, one or the other. It's public schools. You'll always defend them and teach other people to do this. This is your challenge as you leave Cobb Avenue High School, 1954. I sit here today to make the comments. Please don't do that, Barbara. Don't cry. Be strong. Do what she asked me to do. It's to defend education as long as you live and help others to do it. So, Mr. Chairman, and everybody on this committee and that audience, I sit here today remembering what I came up through, being taught great things when being taught racial issues. But still today, I spent my educational career teaching more people look like some of you than look like me. Have fine products, and I want other people who come up after me to have those same rights, to know that you can be what you want to be without, and even teachers. And Mr. Chairman, thank you. I know you don't have a time on me, but even teachers are leaving the profession. You've done well. That's why I don't have questions of those. You've done well with what you came. Teachers are leaving every day. Will this bill help them to stay? No, it will not. Will this bill have to take us out from being looked upon as a nation as number whatever in education? No, it will not. It will not. What are we going to do? There are things we can do, but this bill will not do it as it is written. Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, ma'am.
To get this out, and maybe I can sleep tonight. But tomorrow there's a blessed day for me, the pink and green day, which means I want you all in that why. Economy, and green is number one to us, and money to do all the things. And that's why you do that for me, so that when people who represent the pink and green go in your committees to vote for you and to you, we are a working group. God bless all of you, and pray that we will make Alabama what it ought to be. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Dr. Boyd. We are on a time constraint. They need this room for another meeting. Okay, that meeting's been canceled, I guess. But anyway, we have one more speaker. We'll have one more comment. Representative Lawrence.
Mr. Chairman, I think we have maybe 2 more people that would like to say something, but I'll just be.
Okay, I can do that as long as they're not too long.
I'll just be very brief.
Yes.
And this is a perspective I want everybody to kind of think about as we discuss this piece of legislation and the whole issue with CRT and being woke and all that type of stuff. For the last 2 years, I know for a fact, I don't know if it's been discussed prior to that, but for the last 2 years, we've discussed this bill in this committee. And we all talk about this bill is designed to prevent any divisive concepts, to prevent anything that deals with race, negligent or whatever. But last year, this is a partisan body. We have Republicans and we have Democrats, different philosophies, different ideas. But in that body, we have a mixture of Republicans that are black, some white. We have some Democrats that are black, some white. So that it's not on racial lines, I would say. But if you think back to last year when we had this public hearing, had this committee meeting, and you ask yourself, when we had the public hearing and we looked at the list of opponents versus the list of proponents, that was right down party lines last year. I mean, not party lines, racial lines. You had not one black person to stand in support of this piece of legislation. That should tell you something within itself. This year, the same thing happened. You had not one black person to stand in support of this piece of legislation, although you did have several whites to stand in opposition of this legislation. So that should tell you right there, on its face, we talk about divisive concepts, but on its face, what we're doing here today with HB 7 it's very, very divisive. And it's the reason why we're here now. And I think it's going to continue if we pass this legislation here today. And I can bet all the tea in China that when we have this vote, guess what's going to happen? It's going to be on racial lines. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Chestnut.
Just a few observations. I share the same sentiments with Representative Lawrence. But in addition to that, you know, the Alabama Constitution in 1901, it was established for one purpose only, to establish white supremacy. That would make the Alabama Constitution on its face in violation of this law that you want to propose to pass right here. So what does that do? Does that say that we are passing an unconstitutional bill because it's going to make divisive, make wrong, make an error the Constitution that we actually operate upon here? Let's look at another issue. Confederate monuments. When I was a kid in grade school, I knew that the Confederacy was the equivalent to Jews as Nazi Germany was. There is no difference because people who look like me, and I can trace my lineage back to a farm in Marion Junction, Alabama, my folks were enslaved. That's a fact. Slavery by its very nature was evil, it was sinister, it was divisive. So that would be a divisive concept. But there's not a single person who votes in favor of this today who's going to say, take down the Confederate flag. There's not going to be a single person who votes in favor of this today who's going to say that, you know what, there were some things that some of my ancestors did that were wrong. And you know what? It wasn't me, but I know that it was wrong. And I do feel that it is part of my responsibility to do what's right here, right now, going forward. But, you know, what we're doing here is we're essentially telling a rape victim to get over it. Move on. There's nothing to see here. That's what we're doing with this bill. This is a slap in the face to every decent, hardworking Black Alabamian that's in this room, that's out of this room, and to the children, to the unborn. It's divisive that not a single white person on this committee is going to vote no against this bill. That is divisive. A couple years ago, a colleague, Matt Friday, who now sits on a court of civil appeal, he had a free speech bill. And that free speech bill was brought because on college campuses in Alabama, alt-right kids were not allowed to go on college campuses and express themselves. I don't agree with the alt-right, but I voted for Matt Friday's bill. Not because I agree with the alt-right, but because I'm an American and I agree with free speech. I agree with the First Amendment. I believe that even if someone says something that I despise and it disgusts me, it is that person's right as a red-blooded American to express it. So yeah, I get upset when I hear people say things that are insensitive, that are scurrilous, that are racist, that are misogynistic, that are crazy. I get very offended. But at the same time, I understand that it is that person's right as an American citizen. And so I supported that bill because as an American and someone who believes in the Constitution and believes in the freedoms that we all receive by birth in this country, I stand with those who want to do right, with those who want to follow the Constitution, who says that it applies to all of us, not just some of us. And I'm telling you, everything I've said, my predictions, I guarantee you they're going to come true in a couple of seconds. Thank you.
Hey, Mr.
Thank you,
Chairman,
Representative Chestnut.
if I'm not out of order, I would like to request a roll call vote.
Yes, sir. Okay, we have a motion and a second, so we will, clerk, please call the roll.
Representative Sells,
Aye.
Representative Bedsole,
Aye.
Dr. Boyd,
No.
Representative Butler, Representative Chestnut.
No.
Representative Cole,
Aye.
Representative Kirkland, Representative Lawrence,
No.
Representative Paramore, Representative Shaw, Representative Stahagen, Representative Yarborough, nine yeas.
Okay, it's 9-3. Yeas have it. Bill has passed out of the committee. Thank you, members. We are adjourned.